Okay, awesome. So thank you so much for joining the webinar. Are you inviting hackers in? The 3 ways to protect your valuables. I am super excited to have you join. Today, we're going to share the how cybercrime is happening in 2021. We're going to talk about the 3 ways that you're letting them in. We're going to talk about how phishing is a art form and how you should protect yourself. And we're going to talk about the ways you should protect yourself, the 3 ways you should protect yourself. So today we're going to start out with an introduction. I'm going to go first, and we're going to let Josh talk about his background, and then we're going to jump right into the topic. So I'm Tiffany Ricks. I'm the founder and CEO of Hackware. Prior to Hackware, I started my career in engineering for the Department of Defense. I built enterprise technology for the Air Force, for the Navy, got exposure into cybersecurity because the government is the #1 target for cyber attacks. And so I worked as a security engineer and then also worked as an ethical hacker. I've been in cybersecurity for over 15 years and have been recognized in many publications as an award-winning cybersecurity expert. I used to own a cybersecurity consultancy in Dallas, Texas, where I saw companies across the board get hacked, from small to all the way up to Fortune 1000 companies. And so I'm excited to share more about how you can protect your company and yourself from a cyber crime. And now I'm the founder and CEO of Hackware, where we use AI to protect users from cybersecurity attacks with our cybersecurity education platform. And companies use us from various sizes. And so I'm excited to be here, and I'll pass it over to Josh, where he can introduce himself and share more.
Hey everyone, it is so great to be here today. My name is Josh Weiss. I'm the president and founder of LA Creative Technologies. We are a IT managed services and cybersecurity company out of Los Angeles, California, and we focus on streamlining and securing passion-driven businesses of all kinds. I've been in technology for about 20 years. And unlike Tiffany, when I first started out, I really didn't have security as top of mind. The first thing that I was really concerned with was just helping people get their computers set up right and get their systems secured. I had a background working in radio stations and working on music. And it was interesting because when I first started, you could actually have a focus on technology without focusing on security. But something has changed in the last 5 to 10 years, which is that there really is no longer such thing as IT, as information technology, without cybersecurity, because we're living in a very, very interconnected world. At this point, businesses are online, personal lives are online, and the threat from cyber attackers is just getting really, really crazy. So my focus in my business for the last, I would say 5 years especially, has been on helping the type of companies that we work with, has been helping them to make cybersecurity more, let's say, relatable. Right? I want to help bring cybersecurity down to something that even if you have a 5 or a 10 or a 15 person business, that you actually have solutions that can keep you safe. And what I learned early on is that the most important piece of that puzzle is often what they call the human firewall, is just training your people and sort of helping them understand what's going on and how to prevent attacks. So I ended up finding Tiffany and Hackware because training people is my favorite part of cybersecurity, and Hackware does that very well. So, essentially my goal is to streamline and secure companies. And it's become so important in that securing to really work with the human element. And so we're going to talk about that today, amongst some other things.
Awesome. So I'm going to kick it over to Josh, where he's going to tell you about what does cybercrime look like in 2021.
Okay, so we're given this presentation. This is May 2021, though I know that this information is definitely going to stay valid for a while. But the reason I say that is because on the screen right now is an actual email that I got on March 22nd, 2021. One of the verticals that we support is the architecture, engineering, construction vertical. And this email was sent to one of my clients from one of their partners, who is a national mechanical engineering plumbing MEP consultant. And so these guys were basically saying that they lost access to their company servers, and that essentially they're relying on email and the attachments in emails to get their documents. They've lost their calendar invites. And in red at the bottom there and highlighted, you can see that they were hacked by a group called DarkSide with a threat that's called ransomware. And so DarkSide, we're going to talk about them more on the next slide, but they're really representative of the new trends in cybercrime, which is a couple different things. One of them, I'm sure all of you are familiar with software as a service. So you pay Microsoft for your email instead of having an email server in your closet. And you pay Salesforce to be your CRM instead of having to maintain that software yourself and install updates. So DarkSide is part of a new trend where international cybercrime syndicates. This is not just your kid in his basement doing the hacking. These are real, organizations of people who are making a lot of money, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And what they do is they offer ransomware as a service. So if you are someone who wants to go find companies to hack that you can ask for money, you would pay money to a service like DarkSide, and they would actually produce the software that would get sort of put on a company's computers to hold them ransom, right? So what that means is you would steal all their data, you would put a software on their computer that once you've stolen the data, it locks up their files essentially. And they get a note and it might say something, it's completely ridiculous. It'll say, congratulations, all your files are no longer available to you, but if you pay us, you can get them back. So they'll have a little chat. You have to go in the chat and you have to negotiate to get your files back, and you have to negotiate with them to delete those files so that they don't release them to the public. Okay, so this is sort of like painting the context. We have some international crime syndicates. We have ransomware as a service. And we have this, actually what ransomware is. So I get this email March 22nd, 2021, talking about DarkSide. And then Tiffany, can you go to the next slide, please? So here we go. I get the Wall Street Journal at home. And so this is the Wall Street Journal from May 12th, less than 2 months after I got that email. As ransomware attacks rise, consequences get more severe. So that same organization called DarkSide, their software was used to deploy ransomware to the Colonial pipeline. So Colonial was, I believe, the biggest distributor of gasoline on the East Coast. So what happens? These guys send ransomware to Colonial, and in an effort to keep their whole system from having problems, because it could be potentially dangerous to have the gas system impacted, they shut their entire distribution network down of gas. And so as a result, what do? We get these long lines of cars at the gas station loading up on gas because people are scared there's a gas shortage. And so we see these same companies, these organizations like DarkSide. I don't think any of us would have ever heard of a small MEP firm getting ransomware and getting hacked. But what we're seeing is that the same people who are hacking at such a large scale that they are actually causing geopolitical issues to happen, they are also hacking the smaller organizations that we've never heard of. And then what they're doing, because we now have Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, they are able to request these ransoms in digital currency that is hard to trace. And so what we learned in the Colonial Pipeline hack is that DarkSide was paid almost $5 million to give the data back, and so that they could get back to work, and also to delete the data. And so this really covers all of the pieces of the modern cybercrime world, where we have internationally dispersed organizations doing hacking. DarkSide was in Russia. It was not based on the Russian government. They just happened to be Russian. They were doing their hacking from Russia. They were able to ask for money in cryptocurrency so that they could actually get this very large sum transferred. And we're seeing this total sort of, it could be a small company and it could be a big geopolitical actor. And now, interestingly enough, DarkSide has apparently been taken down because they got themselves too much attention by hacking such a large pipeline. But at the end of the day, I really thought that these were some good ways to see the various trends that are happening these days in cybercrime, and really why it's so important, because as Tiffany sort of moves on to her next slide, there's a lot of pretty basic steps that we can take to work on preventing these attacks. And so anyway, what we want to look at first is how are they actually getting into the systems? And I think, Tiffany, I'm going to pass that to you.
Absolutely. And Josh, great points. It was really insightful to understand, how it starts with that email, and then, bad actors are people are hiring DarkSide and other bad actors to really try to pull off these phishing scams. And so what I'm going to talk to you about is, you really talk about the top 3 ways that we could be letting bad actors in. We could be letting cyber criminals in, with our day-to-day behavior at work or just in our personal lives. And the top one is through email. So with email, that is the number one, threat vector for cyber crime. 90% of phishing attacks, they start through email, and they start by targeting people like us who are busy and who are wearing multiple hats and juggling multiple things. So they target our vulnerable people in our email, and that's how we're able to get to these data breaches that you hear in the news. And oftentimes it's not the large companies that are suffering cyber attacks every day. It is the small business. It's the small businesses that are falling victim to these attacks. And so a couple ways that we are letting hackers in through email is we aren't taking that pause. There's this whole thought process that we need to get down to, we need to have all of our inbox assessed, reviewed, and open. So we need to get down to this zero inbox. And if you take that approach, I recommend you pause, because opening your email without hovering over it, or hovering over the inbox to see who this message is coming from, you could be opening yourself up to a vulnerability. So pay attention to where the message is coming from. The other thing is, the message could come from someone that this is called a business email compromise scam, where someone that their inbox has been compromised, and they're asking you to do X, Y, and Z. It could be they're asking you to click on this link, or they could be asking you to forward them X amount of Bitcoin, as Josh pointed out. That is the way that they're able to get your resources and it is undetected, is through asking for these Bitcoin payments. And so be aware of where the messages are coming from. Also, hover over the links. So the links that are in these emails, oftentimes They may appear to be coming from a source, but if you hover over them, you'll see that it doesn't match up. It could be that it is a link that is on a Firebase server. So bad actors are really trying to figure out ways to have links look like they're coming from reputable sources, and they have their data hosted on Firebase servers, Google sites. And when you click on these links, it is linked to malicious content that is on these sites. And so be aware of that for email. The other top 2 ways that you should watch your behavior and make sure that you're exhibiting good cyber posture is with passwords. So this is a two-sided coin to be aware of. So if you have a password, you may be exhibiting good cyber posture where you are using your password and you're changing it every 3 to 6 months or so. But the problem could be that if you're using the same password on multiple sites, and that site gets hacked. So it could be that you're using your Microsoft 365 account, and that account gets hacked, and they have access to your password. Well, they could use that password and get into another site. So it could be that you may have great cyber posture where you're changing your password, but the problem is that it's not 100% effective because you're changing your password across multiple sites. And if that one site gets hacked, now you've opened yourself up to a breach, and you could expose your company to a cybersecurity breach. So definitely make sure that you are changing your passwords. You're not writing your passwords down, and you're not sharing your passwords. And so we also often see with the small businesses that we work with, they may give their password to their social media site to a third party. It could be their marketing firm. And that marketing firm, they've given access to that password, but that password is the same across all their sites. And so just really be careful with your behavior with your passwords and your email. And then final, the one that I see that doesn't get enough attention is, how do you keep track of what you're giving people access to? When we talk about the work environment, are you keeping track of when you bring on this new employee, what you have giving them access to, keeping track of that. And then where we get a little lazy is we may give them too much access to things that they don't need. We're giving them full access to edit certain things when they may just need to have the ability just to view it. And then we really fall into poor cyber behavior when we forget, when they leave or they're no longer engaging with us, we forget to remove access. And so these are very just simple things that if we change these things, we're making it harder for bad actors to get in, but we're rushed. We are, like I said, wearing multiple hats. And oftentimes we are, with our behavior, we're allowing these bad actors in. And as an ethical hacker, I used to, as I stated before, companies hired me to figure out how could a hacker get in. And so it is an art form. I've seen it, I've done it, and and it is survival for bad actors. And so as Josh said, people are hiring dark side to be able to pull off these cyber attacks. And that is true. It's dark side. I've seen something similar to a call center where people are hired to send phishing text messages and make calls to try to get your credit card information and get you to verify your personal identifiable information. So it's an art form. And what bad actors are doing is it's just pure psychology. they understand that if I put something in here about in the title that's saying that you are going to get, your account is going to be suspended, you know, that urgency, that ability of knowing that if I don't do this right now, I am not going to have access to X, Y, and Z. Or, you know, they're looking at information of what you're putting on social media on, you know, you may be talking about, these are my top 5 financial apps that I like to use. And so you'll get an email from a bad actor stating that they're from this bank, and you in your resources have been frozen. And in order to get access to these resources, you need to click on these links. And so cybercrime it's an art form. It's all about understanding who your target is and trying to figure out ways to exploit that. And so what we're doing in this webinar is we are really trying to give you the tools to pause, to understand what you could do to make it hard for bad actors. And that's what we're going to talk about in this next slide, ways you can protect your valuables. And so I'm going to turn this over to Josh.
Hey everyone, thanks for that, Tiffany. Those things, it's just amazing how those 3 things that you brought up are really causing like pretty much all of these breaches and these issues that we see in the news. Mm-hmm. So the first one, jumping into passwords, right? I mean, essentially we talked about the fact that people are using the same password on a lot of sites and they're sharing passwords when they shouldn't be. So essentially, when looking at passwords, the first thing that we recommend to everyone is to use what's called a password manager. You could use 1Password, LastPass, Keeper. There's a lot of them. I won't go into that, but essentially what that lets you do is you have an easy way to remember all your passwords, since I know most of us probably have a couple hundred sites that we have to log into. And it lets us sort of have a different password for every site. And now maybe when you're logging into like some random news site, maybe you don't care so much, but for anything that you're using for your business, for your social media, for anything that is sort of personal to you, highly recommended, use a password manager. And also you want to use multi-factor authentication, MFA, 2FA. You really want to turn that on for all of your sites. It's free from every company that offers it. Every major website has it, and it's super important. So get a password manager, use a different password for all of your important sites, and use multi-factor authentication. And on the access side, we really want to make sure that people are not having access to things they don't need. So it really comes down to both reviewing the sort of the checklist or the policy. What do we do when someone starts? What do we do when someone leaves the job? And just having a process that someone can look through that checklist and really having it dialed in. So when someone starts their job, your IT department or your IT company, they know exactly what to do. When someone is terminated or when someone quits, you know exactly what to do. And right, including resetting their passwords so they can't log in. So, you know, we're really looking at, these are both sort of a policy thing, make sure we have good passwords and we're doing the right stuff. And we're protecting them, and then make sure that we have good policies in place when people come and when people go, so that they only get access to what they need. The reason being, let's say one of those people does get hacked, it's better if they have the minimum possible access into the system. And I think you have one more circle for us, Tiffany.
Great points. So exactly what Josh said. We need to make sure that we're using a password manager. We need to make sure we have a policy for onboarding and offboarding employees. And then, you know, the final way that I think that a user should think about how they can protect their valuables is with cybersecurity education. That is the #1 way when we talk about avoiding phishing attacks. And as I stated before, phishing attacks account for 90% of data breaches. And if we think about if the audience is small business, in the United States, there's 33 million small businesses. 70% of those small businesses have been targeted by a cyber criminal with regard to a phishing attack. So 70% of small businesses have been targeted. And then when we think about if those small businesses actually got hacked, then 60% of them go out of business within 6 months. The way that we really try to protect our users from phishing is to be proactive, and we need to train our users on how to avoid that. And that's with cybersecurity training. And as Josh said, our people are our firewall. They are that human firewall, and they should be educated on how to protect themselves first, from losing their resources and, losing their private data like their social security number and driver's license. And then now they would be more inclined to learn, how can they protect their company? How can they protect their company from, losing their proprietary data, their company secrets, wiring money to, a bad actor? We have to educate our users and give them that information that they need to know what to do, because cyber crime is inevitable. Phishing attacks are going to happen. Your users are going to get targeted by a cyber criminal, and you have to give them the tools they need to get out of harm's way. And so that's what we're doing here with this webinar. And, that's what Josh and we do on a daily basis. We've seen so many companies fall victim to phishing attacks, and with our, and we know that education is key. It's not, the only thing you need, but it's really, when you talk about how do I get started, what do I need to do to avoid social engineering attacks, start with education, start with educating your people. And so, that's all that we have. We're going to leave with a couple final thoughts, or if there's questions, we'll be happy to answer them. The final thought that I have is just regarding, empowering your people with information. So at hackware.com, we provide many free resources to help your users understand the threat landscape and how to move forward. We every month put out the top 8 phishing attacks that are impacting businesses. And so we have the April poster on our website if you go to hackware.com, and we'll have the May phishing attacks that our product mines daily. We'll put those up at the beginning of June. And Josh, any final thoughts or takeaways you want to share?
Yeah, I think just the thing that I like to remind people is that we're talking today about business and sort of valuable business data, but all of this relates both for you as a company owner and also for your employees. All of this relates just as much to the personal life. And, I know most people these days, they have their vacation photos and their family photos up on Google, and they have their personal files on Dropbox. And, it's really important that as you as a business owner or you as an employee kind of learn how to protect your business, to understand how this relates back to your personal life as well. And what I like so much about security awareness training in general is helping people understand how this relates to their whole lives. And so, Tiffany has some great resources. I have some work from home cybersecurity guides I could share with you as well that we'll send out info about, and mostly just stay safe, build that human firewall.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.
Thank you.